Rob Gillespie, your Service Director working with the London Borough of Hounslow. You talked in your presentation here at the CIHT conference about condition connectivity, community and communication. I suppose Hounslow is really embedded with the highways are really embedded with the assets of Transport for London and Highways England. Is that communication, is that coordination process getting any easier?
I wouldn't say it's getting easier, you just need to get out and do it. Quite often things go awry because we don't actually start that process in the first place. So what we did was set up the infrastructure for that, excuse the use of the word infrastructure, but set up the way to do that with the right touch points in Transport for London and Highways England. And we actually do it with the neighbouring boroughs as well that surround Hounslow and start that communication process through a resilience group, through a communications group. For instance, all of our neighbours and Highways England and Transport for London have all the results of our winter service decision making, for instance, as it happens through electronic systems. So it's not so much about it getting better, it is getting better, but I think it's because we've all taken that jump and we get on and do it.
But you have got a long-term privately financed setup there. I mean, presumably, from what you see about the way you're operating, does that make it easier to have that communication, to have that long-term thinking with them?
It does. Certainly having the no uncertainty with regard to funding, not without its risks, I'd go on to say, but knowing that is there, we've been able to make that investment up front. One thing about risk transfer and asking maybe a service provider, a private sector organisation to do more really is a factor of how long are you going to allow them to do it for, and to what extent is the scope of that project, because that gives us greater opportunity to underpin the costs of establishing the organisation in the first place. So for instance, we built a brand new head office for the organisation during the mobilisation phase, and that will transfer back to the local authority in the long term. So we can make the investment up front.
So do you think you're actually getting closer to this, I suppose, nirvana of moving away from OPEX, CAPEX, and moving perhaps towards more long-term investment strategies, more whole-life value? Is that what it's enabling you to do?
It's absolutely paramount. You can't hit the starting gate without having that in place, because it is still CAPEX and OPEX, but the CAPEX has got to be spent correctly to make the OPEX add up in the subsequent 20 years. So we've been doing the asset plans, and it's not just about what will we do tomorrow, it's about what will we do tomorrow and then how long is that going to last, and then what we're going to do in 15 years' time, and what we're going to have to do again in 20 years' time, and that all forms part of the management plan.
Why is that thinking so hard in the public sector at the moment in the UK?
Because the long-term visibility of the funding isn't there. It tends to be uncertainty. Therefore, I can only sympathise that it must be almost nigh on impossible to not just come up with solutions for today to solve today's problem, let alone look at 15 or 20 years' time. And also, I think there's some onus on the private sector here. We've got to be able to be clear about how long things are going to last. If somebody says, yes, I'll have that nice asphalt that you're purveying, how long is it going to last? Oh, well, it depends on this and that and the other. We need to, as an industry, also be a lot more certain about in what criteria things will last, and therefore...
Lots of discussion today about the use of technology, and of course what it has enabled you to do is invest in that technology. Is that solution? Is that the future of managing risk, managing the finances of highways and transportation across the UK?
So certainly to an extent. The data that we use, the systems that we use, allow efficiencies, not just in maybe the way that we inwardly manage our business and therefore be more efficient and get people to jobs quicker, but also therefore about the less tangible impact that it has on communities and on the client organisations to see the level of public service rising. So it certainly is. And the data side of it, trend analysis about deterioration using condition measurements, and then mashing that data to give us predictability about how the network is reacting, how it is deteriorating, how it's behaving, is absolutely paramount to getting the efficient solution in the first place.
I'm sure there's going to be lots of data flowing out of your particular project so we can all gauge how well it's doing. So thanks very much for sharing with us today. Thanks, Rob.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.